Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for those of you who have tuned in to Mom Mode. This is our third episode, and on today's episode, we have Kimberly Roman, who is joining us, and I am super excited to introduce all of you who don't know Kimberly. Um, so, Kimberly, I actually came across her Instagram and looking at her content and just her day to day life of what she shares, I thought was absolutely adorable. And then she has two daughters. So, I was really curious, having one, what it's like going from one daughter to two. And then I also read that she experienced preeclampsia with her second pregnancy. So, in this episode, we're going to be going over a few different things. But, Kimberly, thank you so much for being here on the podcast. It's so nice to meet you. And I'm so excited to just share your motherhood journey with everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love these types of podcasts because especially before I became a mom, I wanted to know all the information about mom life. So I feel like these podcasts are super helpful. So I'm super excited to chat.
Yeah, me too. Can you just share with us a little bit about, like who you are and just kind of what, you know, who you are and what
Yeah.
life looks like for you right now?
Yeah. So I'm Kimberly. I am a mom of two. I live in Southern California, Orange County area, with my husband Tim. We've been married 6 years now, and we have my daughter Lucy is almost 3, and then Hazel is now almost a year next month. And I'm a stay-at-home mom full time, and so yeah, that's kind of, and I kind of create content on the side and kind of just do it for fun and been able to work with some small brands. I kind of just do it for fun. And I share a lot of motherhood, just things I like baking with sourdough, like you said, and just crafty things for my girls and just basically an inspiration on there. So it's been fun.
Yeah. So Kimberly and I were talking about, I just said that I absolutely loved everything that she shares around, the day to day around the house. She makes sourdough. So, like, you have a very creative, artistic side to you, I feel. And
Yeah, I had a background before I became a stay-at-home mom. I worked in the design industry, so I used to do wedding design and then interior design. So I've always had that creative side to me, and so I feel like I've just brought that into my day-to-day to fill my cup as a mom too, since I don't have that job anymore, and so I kind of just bring it into my mom life.
yeah, I mean, that's so important, I feel like, to have that side that kind of fills your cup. Like you said, I like how you put that, fills your cup up.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so as far as like, how old were you when you first became a mom to Lucy?
I was 25 when I became a
25.
mom.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got
And
married at 22. And then we actually went through some infertility, and then we had her when I was 25.
okay, what was that infertility like? Was that like a long journey, a short one?
Um, I mean, I think for me it felt long, but in hindsight now, having friends that have gone through infertility in such different ways, we tried for I think a year, which is pretty short on the infertility scale, I would say. But I had PCOS, and so I knew I had PCOS, and so I figured I would have some struggles. And then I actually had doctors end up telling me that I probably wouldn't conceive naturally. And then my husband actually also had some issues on his end. And so it was kind of both of us navigating that. And we were fairly young when we started trying, I think 23 or 24, and so it was just about a year. And then we actually ended up getting pregnant naturally. So by the grace of the Lord, we feel like it was a miracle that ended up getting pregnant with Lucy. And then I had no issues getting pregnant with our second daughter, Hazel.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you knew that you had PCOS, I guess, before
Yeah.
trying.
Yes.
And then did you go through anything to help you get pregnant with Lucy, or you kind of just,
Yes. Yeah, so we were pretty young and I figured I'd PCOS. And then when I went to the doctors, we kind of did random testing. I don't know, this is too much TMI. I'm just going to say it all because this is a
no,
girls
I love
podcast.
it. Share. Yeah. Like all the
But yeah,
moms
I
are
was,
listening.
yeah, I didn't have a period for 3 months. And so that's all significant a lot of time without having your cycle. I had always had an irregular cycle. And so I started going in to see my doctor, and they were they did an ultrasound and they confirmed it with seeing cysts on my ovaries. And then they wanted to put me on some sort of drug. It's normally for diabetic patients. And it's common when you have PCS that you go on this. And I was like, I'm only like 24. Like, I feel like I could maybe try to go the natural route. And so I started kind of looking up just natural ways to help PCOS and help get your period back. And then I started seeing a naturopath doctor, which helped a ton because she was really meticulous about doing like all the blood tests, and which I feel like doctors and OBs, they kind of just go to the medication first sometimes. It depends on what their standard is, just because they don't study like nutrition and they don't study hormones as much as like a naturopath would. And so I went that route, and luckily she really helped me, and she put me on a few supplements, and then my husband on a few supplements. We figured out it was like also his problem too, not just mine. And then we were able to get pregnant naturally. But the month that I found out I was pregnant, was the month that we were going to go see a fertility specialist to possibly talk about doing like an IUI
Okay.
because yeah. So
Wow. Okay. So
yeah,
that's incredible. I mean, I
yeah,
love that you
yeah.
advocated for yourself because I know, I mean, I've definitely been in a similar situation where like medication was like, okay, go on this medication. I'm like, well, for how long? And they're like,
Why?
forever,
Yeah,
forever. And I'm like, I don't
yeah.
want to be on that forever.
Exactly.
So
Like I was like, I'm pretty healthy. I'm 24, and I was like, well, like I felt like I had a little bit of time to like figure it out, and not that you don't when
definitely.
you're older, but and I think I just like a more natural route of things. I'm thankful that we have Western medicine, but I'm always gonna pick the natural route first and see if we could do it that way before I go to meds.
Yeah. And it worked.
Yeah,
So, I
yeah,
mean, your
it was great. Yeah,
intuition led you in the right way.
yeah, yeah. Super
S-
grateful.
So, Lucy was born almost 3 years ago then.
Yeah. Yes.
And how was it like?
Crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. It goes so fast.
It
It's
does.
so
It's
hard.
crazy.
Like when you're in the moment, you're like, wow, is very different. This is, especially with your first. I mean, was it
Yeah.
hard for you to adjust or like, how did you go from being like an interior designer working with weddings? Like, did you completely stop doing that once you got pregnant, or did you stop doing that
hmm
when you got pregnant with Lucy? Or like, I mean, when you had
Yeah.
Lucy?
So I worked up until I think a couple weeks before I had Lucy, and I had a pretty easy pregnancy, thankfully, with Lucy. Like was a little bit sick, but like nothing crazy. Normal pregnancy with her, and so I was able to work. I had a really stressful job before I got pregnant with her. So like right before I got pregnant, I quit a job that was just more stressful, and then probably helped me get pregnant, honestly, with PCOS, because when you have any sort of like hormonal issue, stress
Mhm.
makes it like 10 times worse. And so I think just, not being as stressed out helped. And then it wasn't, the interior design was more of like an office job. Like it wasn't like on my feet as much with like weddings and stuff. And then, yeah, so I just worked up until I had Lucy, and then, which was great. And then I freelanced a little bit for my past job. And sometimes when there's weddings that come up, I'll contact like my old coworkers and stuff. And if there's a wedding, like it's fun to do, but more so freelance and fully stay at home mom now. But the transition was good. I had nannied in college and like was comfortable around babies. Like I love babies. And so that wasn't as scary to me going from
Mhm.
like 0 to 1. I would say for me, going from 1 to 2 was a little bit harder than
Okay.
0 to 1, but just in different ways. With Lucy, my first daughter, breastfeeding was really challenging for us. But you just don't expect it to be. People say it's like natural, and like
Mhm.
it is natural, but it doesn't come naturally. I would say it was really hard for us because we had just a lot of issues. She had a few tongue ties and like lip ties, and she was a smaller baby. And then I didn't know this was a thing, but like if you have flatter nipples, that's super fun to be told. But like they're
I
like,
didn't know
yeah,
that
just
was a
like the
thing.
it was like awesome. And
So
so
like
like
they just can't latch as well maybe then?
yeah, especially it was a combination of things. Like she had a really tiny mouth, and then it was just like, yeah, and then like with her tongue ties. So there's like a bunch of different issues, but I was like really determined to breastfeed. And so we went to like lactation appointments a lot, and it was really painful for the first 2 months for us, which I know like every woman's story is different with that, but it can be a
Yeah.
challenge at first. So a lot of times also like my friends, if they're like becoming mom, like it's normal that it's challenging. Like obviously do what you want to do. If you want to breastfeed, if you want to formula feed, like all are great.
Yep.
But if you like want to breastfeed, like I'm going to tell you exactly what I did because it wasn't easy. Like I didn't do it for a year because it was easy. Like it was really hard. So
I would agree with
yeah,
that. I feel like
yeah,
breastfeeding can have its own series.
Yeah,
because of how
honestly, it
challenging
could.
it
We could
can
go
be.
on and on. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely did it, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to give my daughter formula because I just got to a point where I wasn't producing enough, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, my daughter has to eat.
Oh,
So
yeah, of
I ended
course.
up around like 10, 9.5, 10 months. I started supplementing or like just giving her formula and just
Hmm.
trying to like get at least a breast milk bottle a day
Yeah.
to her. And so that's what I did. And now that she's 15 months old, I'm like, I can't believe I put that pressure on myself. Like I'm very
Yeah.
upset. I'm like, I'm so glad I did it.
Hmm.
But, you just get this pressure and then you see all these other moms breastfeeding and you're like, this is what I have to
Hmm.
do.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's really mental. It's like a lot in your mind. And so, yeah, I think it's whatever you want to do as a mom.
yeah.
Um, but
One,
there's more resources now. It's like if you really want to breastfeed and you have the supply and you just need to find the right resources that will help. And also like you don't need to feel guilty about whatever you decide to do.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And like if your body doesn't allow you to, like mine, I was like eating all I don't know what you did to help. I mean, did you have a supply problem or no, it was just like getting her to eat?
No, it dropped. Well, because I milk didn't come into like day 5, I remember. So like I had the colostrum, but it wasn't. I didn't have it like right away, and
Mm-hmm.
so I borrowed some milk from a friend because I was like, because I was really determined to breastfeed, and I think I had heard like if you do formula in the beginning, then you're more likely to like do it the rest of the time,
Mm-hmm.
because they're so used to being really full. And so I was like, I wasn't super. I'm trying to get the word. Well, my mom brain is like fuzzy. But I wasn't against formula, but I was like, I just like want to really try to do breastfeeding. And I know like sometimes when you introduce formula in the beginning, then it can be harder to like switch back. If that makes
Yep,
sense. And
that makes
so my
sense.
friend was like, I have a bottle, and like I was able to like pump enough and then like get my body going. And once I stopped stressing out about it, then my milk supply was fine.
Yeah. No, that's a
Yeah.
big thing is not stressing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you were able to breastfeed Lucy, get through those tongue ties. Um,
Yes.
how was the rest of like motherhood, I guess, in the beginning for you, like her first year of life? And like what led you and your husband to being like, okay, we're ready to try for baby number two?
Yeah, so obviously being a mom is so hard. But I had a lot of other mom friends, which honestly helped a ton, like just having a community. And especially as a stay-at-home mom, I was used to like talking to people a lot more. So it was really lonely in certain parts, like in the beginning. But luckily I had a few friends that had had babies like a year prior. But there's still like a loneliness in that.
Mhm.
So I think it's important just to like have other mom friends that you like meet up with regularly and like doing things that you enjoy doing so you don't like lose yourself, I guess, in motherhood. Like you do in a sense, but just like to remember that you're still you with that while
Mhm.
also being a mom. Um, but yeah, the first year she wasn't a super hard baby, I would say. Like sleep was hard, but I feel like sleep is hard for everybody at that stage. And she was a little colicky in the beginning, which was hard. And other than that, she was a pretty like chill baby. And so and I don't know if we were necessarily ready for number 2, but after she turned a year, I actually was able to like get my cycle back and stuff. And then we weren't really preventing because we were like, oh, it's probably going to be really hard to get pregnant again. And so we just like never really like prevented it. And then I got pregnant with Hazel, I think when Lucy was like 15 months old. So
Okay.
they're pretty close in age. Yeah.
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 What was like your mindset like when you found out you got pregnant that quickly? I mean, quicker than
I
you
honestly,
anticipated.
yeah, I was honestly shocked that we got pregnant because I just didn't want to go through like the tracking and like all the negative tests again. It's just I wanted to like mentally prepare for that because it could be hard mentally, and then with also taking care of a toddler.
Hmm.
And so I honestly was shocked, super grateful that we were blessed with another baby, and yeah, so we were
And
ready.
then with it being like having Lucy at home, how would you say your pregnancy was, I guess, different because now you're running after like a toddler essentially.
Yes, it
Well, I
was a
guess
lot
I don't know if
different
she
for
was
sure.
walking. I'm sure she was she
She
walking
was.
already?
Yeah, she was yeah, she started walking after she turned 1. So, yeah, at that point she was.
So how was that like? Did you have like morning sickness and like
Yes,
I
I
guess
had
how
morning
did
sickness
it
a lot
differ?
worse. Yeah,
Okay.
so well, I think part of it was too when I was pregnant with Lucy, I was working the whole time. a 9 to 5 job. And so I feel like my brain was a little bit more distracted with that pregnancy. And so I was a little bit sick with Lucy, but I was way more sick with my pregnancy with Hazel. Um, and I don't know if I was like just more distracted with Lucy because I like had to be at work at a certain time and kind of like didn't want to tell everyone I was pregnant yet. And so I was kind of hiding it. And
Mm-hmm.
but I think my body was, I think also I've heard like the second or third pregnancy, your body just knows what it's doing. And so it can like show symptoms sooner and maybe more. And so I was way more sick with Hazel. And that was the first trimester was rough with a toddler because I needed to take care of her. But I also was just wanted to take a nap and I couldn't take a nap anymore in the mornings. And I would get sick and she was there screaming at me when I was getting sick. And so
Oh,
I just remember being like, oh my gosh, what is my life right now? Her
yeah.
just like screaming because I'm like getting sick and she's like, oh my God, and like screaming at me like, Mom,
Because she's
what's
not
wrong with you?
realizing what's
Yeah.
going
And
on.
yeah. And she's so little, like she's only like 16 months, like, so
Yeah.
so funny. But
So with your second, so Lucy's pregnancy, like everything was normal.
yes. Yep.
Nothing.
I had a little bit of high blood pressure like a few times in my pregnancy. I remember one time at work, I think honestly I had too much caffeine that day. I think I had like a coffee in the morning and then I think I had like soda or something when we went out to lunch with my coworkers. And then after I had lunch, I just was really dizzy. And so I took my blood pressure because I had like a cuff at home and it was pretty high. And so I went to the doctor and they just said to like take, I think it was baby aspirin or baby Tylenol, whatever they say with high blood pressure. And then
Mhm.
I didn't have any other issues besides that one day. And then I was overdue with Lucy. I went to like 40 weeks and like a couple of days. So I was a little bit overdue. And my blood pressure was a little bit high at that appointment. And so she's like, we want to induce you because your blood pressure's a little high. If you're overdue, like let's just, get you guys healthy and like safe and get the baby out. So but other than that, it was normal pregnancy. And then with Hazel, my blood pressure, I had never had any issues with blood pressure at all in my pregnancy. Um, so super normal pregnancy, just was more sick in the beginning. And then
Mhm.
I was 37 weeks pregnant when they diagnosed me with preeclampsia.
That's how
Yeah.
far along I was. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I
Yeah,
actually,
crazy.
I think I mentioned that to you maybe in my message that
Yeah, I
I
think
had
so.
preeclampsia. And so, yeah, they were kind of monitoring me for it
Hmm.
because my blood pressure, like, it was like 128 over like 85, 130
Hmm.
over 87, which I
Hmm.
guess is considered higher.
Yeah.
Um, so they didn't have that at any of your appointments with Hazel. It was just
No,
very
none.
normal
Like,
until that 37-week appointment.
so actually, my 37-week appointment, my blood pressure was normal that morning, or I think it was afternoon, and I went in and they did the Doppler. Um, and I remember I had a midwife team, and I remember her like looking at it and then like looking at the other midwife, and I was like, oh, something's wrong. And I guess Hazel's heart rate decelerated, and then like went back up and was normal. And so they were like doing it just a lot longer than like I remember them normally doing it. And then they were like, well, her heart rate decelerated, but it went right back up. So if we did this like 5 minutes later, we might not have caught it. But she's like, I think everything's fine because you're having like a normal pregnancy and you're not swollen, you're not having any like symptoms. But she's like, I want you to go to the hospital just to like double check. And so I figured everything was fine because she didn't seem super concerned. It was just to be safe as a precaution. And then I went to the hospital. I had to wait about an hour for my husband to like meet me at the hospital because he was at work and I had Lucy with me and they wouldn't let me in with
Mhm.
her. And then they did a test because so I guess for my whole pregnancy with Hazel, I think I only did the like urine samples a couple times. I don't
Okay.
know like what the standard is if like you did that, but with Lucy's pregnancy, every appointment I did like the urine sample and that's where they can check for preeclampsia through the like protein in your urine.
Yeah, I think it's your protein
So
levels
I'm
spike, I think.
yeah, and so I'm curious thinking back at it now if I would have like done those samples the whole pregnancy if like maybe they would have caught it sooner,
Mhm.
but because my blood pressure was normal. But so they basically did that when I got to the hospital. They like checked to make sure Hazel was fine and her heart rate was fine, like it was normal. But then they're like, this might be preeclampsia. We just want to check because I did have really bad heartburn my whole pregnancy. I think that was the only really symptom. And then like some headaches, but like it's hard because those are normal pregnancy symptoms. So
Yeah,
you don't really think twice about it's hard because you're like, well, these symptoms are all pregnancy symptoms. But they
exactly.
actually they wanted to test my urine, but they were like, we need to do like a catheter thing to like, it hurt really bad. So I forget what it's called because it was right after I was like, that was terrible. It was basically to like test the urine, like without the like water to like dilute it to like make sure they get accurate testing.
Oh, wow.
So they basically put a catheter in you to test it. And so it's kind of painful. They like did like a numbing spray on me. And I was like, okay. They asked me if they could do it. And I was like, sure. But when you don't know what you're saying yes to, I was like, okay. I really wish I'd have
Yeah.
said no to that. But then they caught that I had preeclampsia because of that. And so I just remember that my midwife came and she's like, your preeclampsia, we're going to induce you right now. And I was like, what? So it was definitely a shock and it was definitely overwhelming because I just like wasn't just prepared at all. And I was not expecting to have to be induced in that moment.
No. Yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, so you were at the hospital at this point.
Yeah, because my
You had drove
midwife,
to the hospital,
yeah, because my
waited for
midwife
your
office was
husband.
across the street from the hospital. And so I like waited for my husband. He ended up taking Lucy, I think, like to lunch or something. So it was like in the afternoon just to be out of the hospital while I waited and like to see if like if Hazel was okay. And then to do all those like testings for it.
So, what did
Yeah.
you, I mean, how quick did it happen then? So they were like, hey, we have to induce
So
you. What did you feel?
yeah,
Did you even have time to feel anything?
I started crying, which is like, I wasn't, my baby was okay. So in hindsight, I'm like, okay. But I think you're just really emotional and like hormonal
Mm-hmm.
when you're pregnant. And a lot of things are just out of your control when you're pregnant and you like want things to go a certain way. And I really didn't want to be induced this time because I was with Lucy. And so I was just bummed that like I had to be induced again and just wanted a certain labor. I was like, I want a redemption in my labor. And so I'm like, it's not, because I tore really bad with Lucy
Okay.
and not that when you're induced you always do that, but I just wanted to like experience going into labor naturally and just
Mm-hmm.
seeing what my body did. But so I started crying and I think I was just more overwhelmed with like I thought I had more time with Lucy to spend before baby number two came, and so I was just bummed that I didn't get to like take her on a little date or just do something special with her. It's like my last time with just one.
Mm.
And then I didn't have my hospital bag packed. So I was like kind of just feeling stressed of like, I just don't feel prepared. I was like, I need a shower at my house, like all the things. And so, because we were running errands that morning, I remember taking her. And so I think I was just feeling overwhelmed. And I was like, can I please go home and take a shower? And she let me leave. I had to like sign some papers, but I was like, I promise I will come back. I was like, I just want to like put my daughter to bed. Cause at that point, I think it was like 6 o'clock by the time I like waited and like was there.
Okay.
I was like, can I please leave? And she had a toddler, so she like understood where I was coming from. And I was like, I have to figure out like who's watching her right now. Cause like obviously it was not in the plan like right now. Cause I figured I had a couple more weeks, like I did with Lucy. So I was able to leave, go home, take a shower and like put her to bed and like explain to her like next time I see you, baby will be here. Um, and so yeah, so it ended up happening like maybe a couple hours later. Like I was able to go home and then they induced me in the middle of the night.
Well, that's nice that they let
So
you go home and like
yeah, I
at least like
mean, they
breathe for a
can't.
second.
Yeah, she was like, "Well, I'm not going to strap you to the bed, so like you can leave. Like you have rights." But like if I was feeling dizzy or if I had a headache in that moment or if my blood pressure was really high, I don't think she would have let me
Mm-hmm.
go. But I was like, I felt so normal, and I was like, I wouldn't drive if I felt funny, like for the safety of the baby and me. So, but since I was feeling normal, I was honestly shocked that I had preeclampsia in that moment, just because even the nurses were like, your ankles aren't even swollen, like because that can be like a sign. Like
Yeah.
they were all shocked, and my midwife team was super shocked.
Yeah.
So
I had all those. I had the high blood pressure. I mean, my blood pressure was 160 over 100 the
okay,
day that I went in. And I
okay,
like remember
well,
because my doctor had me monitoring mine since it was like
yeah,
that borderline. And I
yeah,
was seeing a high risk doctor, and it is baby aspirin. So baby aspirin can
gotta be
help.
aspirin. Yes, yeah.
Um, and actually, if you, I don't know, we could talk about this in a little bit, but if you do have another baby because you had preeclampsia, they may actually have you take that during your next pregnancy.
So I do remember them saying because in my chart it said I had high blood pressure with Lucy, and I remember telling like I did a few times, or like 2 times in my pregnancy, so I don't consider myself high risk in that pregnancy. So they said like if you want to take baby aspirin, you can. but they weren't really adamant about it just because I didn't end up having like gestational diabetes or preeclampsia with Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of forgot about that conversation. It was feeling fine. And then I think in that when I was in the hospital with Hazel, they were like, your blood pressure's a little high, but I was like, well, I'm at the hospital and I don't want to be. So my blood pressure's probably high.
Yeah.
But yeah, baby aspirin, I probably will take that because after I had Hazel, my like 6-week checkup with my midwife, I was like, can I prevent this in any way? Because we do want more kids. And so I think there are certain things you can do like with baby aspirin, but there's other things that you can do like with your diet and
Mm-hmm.
a few other things. I definitely will research a lot more before we start trying for baby number 3.
Yeah, I'll have to chat with you like
Yeah.
off the podcast because
Yeah.
I'm currently on that journey. Like experiencing it with my first, I'm like, I'm not ready to experience that again. And I
Yeah. No,
definitely want to
it's
prevent
hard.
it. So yeah. So there's
There were
definitely
certain
ways.
things. Yeah. There's certain things that they told me I could do for my heartburn because my heartburn was so bad, probably for the half of my pregnancy with Hazel. A
Mm-hmm.
little bit with Lucy. I took papaya enzymes, which really helped instead of
Hmm.
Tums because Tums kind of stopped working for me and I didn't love the taste of them.
Oh no, yeah.
I just wouldn't help, Fran. So papaya enzymes and then also pineapple and like lemon water also help, which you would think would be the opposite because they're like acidy things, but it's like I guess they're supposed to cancel each other out. So those two things helped with my heartburn.
Oh, that's
Um,
good to know. Wait, do you do like pineapple and lemon together or just
just like
pineapple or
eating
lemon?
pineapple, just cutting pineapple,
Oh,
doing
okay.
lemon water, like when you're drinking water, put like a little bit of lemon in it, and then the papaya, either the papaya fruit by itself, but they have like supplements like papaya, like chewable enzymes that
Oh,
are
that's
supposed to
good
help
to
too for
know.
some reason. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I
Tums.
had heartburn like when I was in labor pushing my heartburn, it was like burning.
Mm,
And I was like, oh my gosh, like get this baby out of me like now because like it was like burning
it was
in
so
labor,
bad.
which was kind of crazy. Yeah.
With Hazel, that was.
With Hazel. Yeah, that was with Hazel.
So when they
So, and I
induced
know that's a
you,
sign of preeclampsia, but I don't, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I had heartburn my whole pregnancy and I just thought it was normal. I was like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
took Tums and then I'm like, I can't eat Tums anymore. Like till
Mhm.
this day, I can't
Yeah.
even, I don't want a Tums. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I'll just deal with the heartburn at this point. Like, I don't want a
Yeah,
Tums.
I know.
Um, yeah. So it was that bad when you were like giving,
Hmm.
like in labor.
Yeah.
What or not what, how did your labor go? So they induced you.
Yeah.
Did that go pretty quickly then, like bringing her here?
It wasn't a super quick labor. I think it just relative to what you think is long, but I think my labor with Hazel was about 13 hours, which for being induced, I feel like is on the shorter side. With Lucy, I actually had a great induction experience. Like with both, they were pretty great. Like I think I was scared to be induced with Lucy because I'd heard all these like horror induction stories of like women in labor for like 20 plus hours and then they had to
Mm.
get a C-section because they were in labor so long. And so I think I was just afraid, but I actually had great induction experiences. So for encouragement to anyone that if they have to be induced, like my experiences were great. With Hazel, so they induced me. I think they just gave me the side attack first.
Okay.
And then which I got with Lucy, and that's all I needed with Lucy to get my body going. I didn't even need Pitocin with Lucy. My body was just, I think, just ready because I was overdue. And then
Mm-hmm.
with Hazel, it was slower just because I was pretty early, like 3 weeks early. So I was induced with that, and then they gave me the Folly balloon. It's where they
Oh,
like that
yeah.
thing.
Did that
Yeah,
hurt?
yeah. For me, it didn't hurt when they put it in. It's basically like a water balloon that they insert in, and then they like it basically is supposed to blow up and help you dilate. So once you're at like a 5 or a 6, it should like fall out. And some women, if they are induced with like a normal pregnancy, they're able to go home and wait for it to fall out, and then they'll go to the hospital like once contractions start. I had a
Oh,
few
wow.
friends that had that, but since I had preeclampsia, I obviously had to stay and be
Mm-hmm.
monitored. So like the whole time my blood pressure like cuff was on, I remember, and then it was just uncomfortable, that balloon. I was afraid. I remember texting my friend, be like, does it hurt? Like they're telling me to do this. And at that point, I didn't know how I could advocate for myself because I had a certain plan, which I was going to like say no to certain things or
Mm-hmm.
if I wanted to, just because you can, it's your birth. But when I
Mm-hmm.
preeclampsia, I was like, I don't really know what I should do at this point because I don't know what's the best for the baby, what's best for me, because this is scary. Like it could, you know, be life threatening for both of us if it got to a certain point. So So I was just kind of feeling like, I don't know anything. I didn't like research preeclampsia. Like I didn't expect to have it. So,
Mm-hmm.
which is hard when you just don't expect to obviously to have that diagnosis. And so, but yeah, so I had the balloon, whatever it's called. And then, they had to pull it out. It didn't fall out on its own, and that kind of hurt. But I think they were just like really wanting my body to get going.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was hoping to just wait till I needed the epidural. Because I had an epidural with Lucy. With Lucy, I like, give me it now. Like I needed
Mm-hmm.
it. Like I was like, get her in here. Like I need the needle in my back. Like I was like, but this time my labor it just took a lot longer to like my contractions to kickstart. So I like had contractions and then they're like an hour apart. Like it was really slow. And then I remember they gave me more Pitocin at that point. They told me the anesthesiologist was leaving for like a 3-hour surgery. So they're like, if you want the epidural, you have to get it now or like possibly wait 4 hours. And I was like, I don't want to risk not getting that. So
Mm-hmm.
I ended up getting the epidural. But once I got the epidural, my labor sped up a lot. So I think sometimes the epidural does just relax your body enough to like let it do its thing. So I had that experience with Lucy too. Like once I got the epidural, like my body chilled out and like it took an hour for me to get to a 10. So
Wow.
yeah.
So where were you? I guess, do you know how far dilated you were before you got the epidural with Hazel? And then
I
like how
think I
quick it
was a
was?
7. I think I was
Okay.
like a 7. Yeah. And then once I got the epidural, it like took an hour to get to like a 10. And then they kind of just tell you like, once you feel like you have to push, you can call us back in and push and stuff. And it happened pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
I love
yeah.
hearing like the in-depth version of these
Me
birth
too. I know.
stories.
I love the birth stories. I was like, I don't know if you want to get into
No,
detail with them, but I'll share.
no, I love it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's so like, I don't know. I feel that I went in not knowing certain things. And so
Hmm.
like the Foley balloon, never heard anybody talk about the Foley
Yeah.
balloon.
Yeah.
Um, you hear like, oh yeah, they broke my water, but I'm like, I don't know what that's like.
Yeah. Because you have one daughter, right?
Yeah, I have one
Yeah.
daughter. It's really wild. I mean, I thought, it's crazy because you were 37 weeks. I was 37
Hmm.
weeks when I went into
Yeah.
the hospital.
Yeah.
And I thought because maybe it was that I was so early that I didn't dilate, but I had Cytotec, Cervidil,
Hmm.
and Pitocin. I was in
Okay.
laying there for like 20 hours. So I was that crazy
Oh
story.
my gosh. Yes.
I was not even at a one
Oh my gosh. Those
after
are the
all of
stories I
that.
was afright of,
Yeah,
which
I'm
they
like, I'm that
happen.
story. And I was
Yeah, you're the
like,
story.
they're like, she's great. She's doing so good in there. And I like looked at the nurses and I'm like, I'm not good. I've been laying here for 20 hours. At this point, I had the
Oh
epidural.
no. Oh my gosh.
I had the epidural because my doctor was like, I want to try the Foley balloon. No, once again, like, I love that you gave me just what you just told me about the Foley balloon is more than I even knew about it now.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't know what that is, but he wanted to try that, but he could not
Uh-huh.
even get it inserted.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah, so I got the epidural
It's
because
hard
he's
because
like,
it's like your body's not technically ready. Like you needed
yes,
more time, but it's like if they have to get the baby out for safety, like they have to. So it's
yeah.
so hard.
And for me, I was like, I think my doctor really wanted to give me a chance because he was
Mm,
like, once we do a C-section, I don't know that we can do a VBAC.
yeah.
And, I was like sad for like a split second, and then
Hmm.
even when I had because I had her through a
A
C-section.
C-section. Yeah.
But I was just so tired. And I'm like, I have all these different drugs, from them getting my blood pressure down and just everything that they have to give you to make sure that you're okay with the preeclampsia.
Yeah.
Magnesium. I don't know if
Yes,
they
I
gave you,
remember
did they give you
they
mag?
did. Hmm.
And
Yeah, they
that made
did.
me feel so droopy. Like my eyes
Yes.
felt heavy. I just didn't feel like
Hmm.
myself.
Yes.
And so I really
And if you
started,
got, and the epidural sometimes can also
can do
heighten.
that. I didn't
Hmm.
know that.
It makes you feel a little fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely at like a fuzzy place. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I look back and I'm like, I love that I brought her into the world. But then you look back and you're like, it does get hard when it's like, well, it's not the way that you thought. And I feel like
Yeah.
it never goes the way you plan.
No, it never does. Like
I don't think
I
I've
have a
ever
few
met
friends that are
anyone.
pregnant and I'm like, you can have a plan, which is great to like do research and have a plan, but you just have to have really low expectations of how it's going to go because you just don't know.
Yeah.
Like an emergency can happen, like, or it's just the labor's taking longer or shorter, or you just like, you might not even be able to get an epidural if you want one because it might be go too fast and then you won't have time or whatever it is. So I had a lot of guilt, I think, with Hazel because I I just felt not that it's my fault that I got preeclampsia, but I think we try to make sense and like this is the
Mm-hmm.
reason why this happened. Because she ended up being in the NICU for a week, about a
Okay.
week, and so I was like, oh, maybe if I like said no to pitocin or like didn't have them get if I didn't do an epidural, like maybe she wouldn't needed that much time in the NICU because maybe like my labor went too fast and like obviously it wasn't my fault or anyone's fault that those things happen. Sometimes they just do, but I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we try to like place blame on something. Okay, this is the reason that really hard thing happened to me. Yeah.
Definitely. How like so when Hazel was born, did you know immediately that she would need to go into the NICU?
So when she was born, I think I pushed for maybe 30 minutes, which was, I guess, fast, compared to my last, pregnancy with Lucy and my last labor. And so I did like the cord clamp delay. So for like 4 minutes, she was born, they put her on me and then they like waited 4 minutes for like the cord clamp to be cut. And then, I remember Tim, like my husband, was taking some pictures, and now we look back, and she was a little bit like just like pale and a little blue. And then right after they like cut it, the nurses were trying to get the just help her airway to get all the stuff out of her mouth, which I remember with Lucy, so I didn't really think anything of it. And then they took her away just to um get her to like breathe better. She was crying fully, so it wasn't like there was a moment where she wasn't breathing, but so she was crying that whole time. So I didn't really have any concerns. And then you're just so out of it once you push out the
Mm-hmm.
baby. Like you just, it's such a long day. And then your hormones are everywhere and like your adrenaline is rushing. So, and then with the epidural, it's kind of just like a little out of it. Just like not knowing there's a lot going on. There's so many people that come in the room once baby's born. And so
Yep.
I didn't think anything of it. And then I tore a little bit. And so they had to stitch me up. And so I obviously had to like stay. And then my husband was over there with Hazel. And then they were working on her for a while, but they were like stitching me up. And then they said they just wanted to go to the NICU to like help her lungs a little bit more. So I didn't really think really anything of it. I just thought she needed a little bit more help. And then my husband went with her. Um, and then they had to stitch me up like again because I was bleeding a lot. So I just remember my husband was gone, and then they had to like bring those like fluorescent lights right on me right after I had a baby. And I just remember kind of being out of it because of the epidural. I'm like, I kind of dissociated in that moment because I wasn't sure what was happening with Hazel, and then like they had to like stitch me more, and like just being alone, and
Yeah.
so I kind of dissociated in that moment, and then so I didn't really expect her to be gone that long. And then I remember kind of getting with it and getting upset because obviously she was gone. And once you've had a baby, you know just how precious those like first few hours are with them, like the skin to skin, like nursing and everything. And so I remember like feeling like I was missing out on that. And so that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of just hard because you're like, what you're missing and how fast it goes. And so my husband came back and then I remember the NICU nurse came back and said like, she's just having some trouble breathing. So we're going to keep her there. And then every hour it was something different with her. And so we really just didn't know how long she would be there. I remember pumping because I couldn't nurse, and they took away the bassinet from our labor and delivery room. And I just remember I was like, oh, I don't think she's coming back very soon because they took it away for another baby, which I
Oh,
was like,
okay.
that was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just like, wheeled it out. And I was like, okay, so I guess like we won't be needing it. So
And so
yeah,
then when did they like fully communicate to you like, "Hey, she's going to be
they were
staying
giving
here."
us they were giving us updates, but because everything I think with like NICU babies, an hour makes such a difference. Like an hour they could improve really fast, and an
Mhm.
hour they could decline. And so I couldn't go see her until I could walk because in the epidural you have to like wait a little bit. Your legs have to like obviously not be numb anymore. It's like they'll wheel you in there, but you have to be able to like walk. And like they wanted me to like pee first after labor. Got
Mhm.
to pee a certain amount, and so like they want to check that. So they're like, why don't you just like do that? And once you're like able to walk, you like come in and like see her. And then they prepared me because like she had the CPAP, which is just I don't know the technical terms, but it's just to help her breathe. And she had yeah, they put her on the CPAP. It's hard to remember because it's been a year. It's like you kind of forget.
Yeah.
Maybe I trauma blocked it from my brain.
No, I know. That's how I feel. I'm like, it's just not
Yeah.
important anymore. So,
Yeah, it's not. So, but basically her issue was she was having trouble breathing on her own, wasn't getting enough oxygen. And so they're helping her in that way. And so she was basically hooked up to the machines, like in the little incubator thing. So
hmm
I could like hold her hand. And so I went in there, and was able to like touch her. But I just like, I think for just being my second baby, I was like, this isn't how it's supposed to be. Like, I know, like, she's supposed to be with me. And then I think your body really does like react to the separation.
hmm
So I had to like go back to my room, and then luckily they kept me in the room that was right across the NICU. They didn't move me to mother baby room or anything. So just made more sense. And so I remember I had to be discharged on the next day, I think, because I had a vaginal birth, and so I couldn't stay. And that was really hard just to leave the hospital without your baby. So I remember my husband went home to be with my toddler, and the nurses were trying to get me to stay another night, but the hospital was just too full. So they really needed the bed basically, and I had to be discharged. So I just stayed and like was pumping, and my midwife came in and was asking, she's like, what happened? Like, and I just started crying. I was like, my baby's like, God, like, it's so hard
Oh.
emotionally because you're just like so emotional
hmm
already. And then with you not having your baby, was so hard. So I know I'm lucky that she wasn't in there longer. Like in hindsight, I mean, she could have been in there way longer. And there's so many stories with moms having their baby in the NICU for months and months. So,
Yeah.
which is so hard. But yeah, it's just not supposed to be separated from your baby. And so that was really hard. I think just leaving the hospital without her was just super, super hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And how was Lucy like when you went home and saw Lucy? Like, was she like, "Where's my sister?" Or did you
Yeah.
get
I
to
think she
bring her
was
to the hospital?
still, I think my friend was watching her, and also my dad. And they kind of had told her, like, oh, she's like, still in the hospital. She's like a boo boo or something like that. Cause we had photos of her, and like she had like the oxygen like tubes and stuff
Yeah.
in her. And Lucy wasn't able to come. I don't think we were able to have any visitors in the NICU at that
Okay.
point. It was a really small NICU. If her case would have been a lot worse, I think they would have sent us to a different hospital. Um, so it was a really small NICU, which I liked because then I feel like the nurses were like all hands on. There were a lot of nurses, a
hmm
ratio of nurses to babies, which was nice. So we were able to go visit as much as we wanted to. They had certain like shifts, and then when I needed to go like nurse or like try to nurse her at one point, once she started getting better, I was able to try. But my supply, once I left her, my supply dropped. Like I was getting drops. And so I was trying to drive back because we lived like 20 minutes from our hospital. So I was trying to drive to like all of the feedings, and like they eat every 2 hours. And it just wasn't smart. It wasn't sustainable for me to do that because I was driving. And then by the time I had to leave, she probably like needed to eat again. And
Yeah.
so, which in my mind, I was like trying to breastfeed again. I was like, I don't want her to have formula, like, because then it's going to like, I'm not going to be able to breastfeed her in my mind. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I had a nurse say to me, she's like, you need to go home and you need to sleep. You need to go home, be with your toddler because that will help your hormones, like your
hmm
happy hormones, if you just sit with her and be with her. And she's like, when you pump, but don't power pump, because I was doing that. I was trying to just get my milk supply. She's like, you're stressing out.
Yeah.
So she just gave me some top ups. She's like, you need to go home and you need to sleep. And she's like, just pump every 3 hours. Like, you don't need to pump every hour and a half or 2 hours. Like, just 3 hours, set an alarm. She's like, that will help your milk supply come back. But like, I gave them some milk to give her whenever she could
hmm
use it. And then they ended up giving her some formula. And then I was able to breastfeed her now for like almost a year. So
Oh, that's awesome. So your
yeah.
supply
So
was fine when she came home.
yeah, once I like had rest, when she came home, it like fully came back. But once I like listened to that nurse, like I went home and I just like tried to relax because I was just trying to do both. I was trying to like spend time with my toddler,
Yep.
but then also trying to rush back. So like after I put my daughter to bed, I sometimes would like go back to the hospital to see Hazel because it was just hard because and I also couldn't hold her for the first like 3 days, I think. So that's hard
That
because
week
yeah,
probably felt so long.
so long. And in hindsight, I'm like, I know it was only like a week, but it was like
Yeah.
the longest week of my life. And it was probably one of the hardest, challenging things like we've gone through, like just as a couple and just like, I think in that moment, we also didn't know if she was going to improve quickly or not because they really didn't really know why she wasn't improving because her weight wasn't the issue. She was 6 pounds and 12 ounces. So she wasn't like, for being early, she wasn't a
Yeah.
super tiny baby where like they were worried about her weight necessarily. It was more like she wasn't breathing on her own great, but they thought that she had an infection. And then I remember them coming in and they thought she, I think, had like something wrong with her heart. And so like every hour it was like, it may be this. So we're going to do tests. Like it may be this. And so that's what made it feel like even heavier of like, she going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think if I would have known like, okay, she's going to be there a week because she's just having trouble breathing. She was born too fast or born early. She
Yeah.
just needs like more time. I think that mindset would have been a lot easier for me to like comprehend. But I think in that moment, you're just like, is my baby going to be okay? So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that
And like
was
so
so hard.
anxious. I would have been filled with just nerves and anxiousness, which I feel like is just a
Yeah.
normal response.
Oh yeah, for sure. And seeing moms like come in the NICU and then like leave was just like, so happy for you, but like you're kind of in my face, like
Yeah.
going back at all these families, which is hard. So it's like, when are we going to get to go home?
So
But
was it
I
just like
actually had
they
a, yeah.
Oh, sorry, go
Mhm.
ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was gonna say, did they just call you like the night before you could go and get her and be like, she's doing great, like pick her up the next day?
Um, so we would go in every day to see her. And
Okay.
then like, so once we left, I think like, so we were able to, I had her, we were there a day, we had to leave, but I would go and see her every day. And I would like try to nurse whenever she was able to nurse, or at least me feeding her. They would give me updates when, if anything happened. And then I would stay for like a few hours just to like, when I could hold her and do skin to skin, because that also would help my supply. And that
Mm-hmm.
does help them improve it, like, because they're needing that. So whenever
Definitely.
they could put her on me, they would, and they would like tell me. It was just the first few days where I couldn't hold her. I think I didn't hold her for like a full 24 hours, and then I was able to. Because I remember after a few days, they had to put her like back on the CPAP so that I wasn't able to hold her anymore, and she had to go. She kind of declined, and they had to go back. So, um, that was hard. But yeah,
But now she's how
yeah.
old is Hazel?
She's almost a year. She'll be
Almost a
11
year.
months next week. Yeah.
And
Almost a year.
how,
So
like, when you brought her home, like, how was that transition from now just you, your husband, and Lucy
yeah,
to now Hazel being in the family?
yeah, yeah, it was great. Lucy was super excited to be a little sister or be a bigger sister. But yeah, she just loved her. She almost had like cuteness aggression where she just like wanted to hold her and like wanted to like squeeze her little cheeks. So we
Mm-hmm.
had to like be really careful. We couldn't like leave her in the bouncer. Like we couldn't like leave her even
No.
for a second because we were like, I don't know what Lucy's gonna do. So just because she like wanted to hold her, like she basically was like her baby doll. So
Oh.
it's so cute. Girl, I've heard that girls sometimes are easier. The transition's a little bit easier because like girls are more maternal naturally,
Mm-hmm.
and so they like want to take care of them or they want to like hold them or feed them or whatever it is. So super sweet. But yeah, the transition was good. It was definitely harder in the beginning than it is now. It's like it got significantly easier going from 1 to 2 once she started sitting up and was able to like kind of play with Lucy a little bit. That's when it got a lot easier. Like I could sit her down and like she would just watch Lucy play. Because right when I had her and when my husband went back to work, it's just harder because you're navigating what two looks like. Because obviously a newborn is more demanding
Mm-hmm.
than when it's just one. So, and then I also had a toddler. So, yeah, it's just a transition that you kind of just have to get used to and find like a rhythm in.
Yeah, almost like, I don't know, I feel like, yeah, there's that rhythm. Like when I first came home, I don't know if you felt this way. I brought my daughter home and I'm like, wait, how do I do all these things to take care of her and what I used to do
Mm,
around the house? And now it's
yeah,
like you do it like you're just doing it.
you
So
just do it. You
then,
just do it because you have to.
yeah. So then when you bring the second baby home, it's probably very similar of like, okay, now
Yeah.
here's this added what I have to do for Hazel plus what I was doing. How am I going to do it? And then you just make it work.
Yeah, you just kind of figure it out. It's nice because newborns do sleep a lot, so it's like in those pockets of time, you can get things done. But it's harder to rest, I would say. Obviously, because when you had one, it's like you could just sleep and take a nap, or you could just have a full on slow day. But sometimes with toddlers, it can be harder because they do need to get their energy out or whatever it is, and like also live their normal life that they were before their sibling.
Yeah.
So we had some friends that like would take Lucy sometimes and watch her for us, or like seeing her like normal routine and getting her out of the house. But we just tried to take it slow, especially like the first month. We kind of just were home a lot and play. It was harder when my daughter wanted to potty train. She decided when my husband went home or went back to work, and then I think Hazel was like a month old, and Lucy was showing signs of like wanting to potty train, and I was like, well, I guess we're home, so might as well do it. But it was hard. It's like I'm feeding Hazel, and then she's like, I have to go to the potty, and like running. Like that's when it's really hard when you're like, I can't be in two places at once,
Yeah.
or like when yeah,
How old was she when she just started wanting to potty train? Do you remember?
right before she turned 2. So like because they're
Okay.
22 months apart, so like right before 2, which I guess is kind of a normal time. It took a while. I did it for a little bit, and I was like, I just can't do this because it's too hard for me to do. So, like I can't put the baby down and just cry. Like everyone's crying, and it's just like stressful.
Mm-hmm.
So we waited until a few more months to like actually potty train. But
Yeah.
it's
So
like in
she,
those moments, I was like, this is where it's hard. Where it's like you're crying and you're crying. Like who do I go to first? Like who needs
mhm.
me more? So that's what's
Yeah.
hard.
I've always heard that girls are more independent with potty training. So, like, perfect example
Yes.
is that she just, because did you or your husband ever mention, like, hey, do you want to start going potty on the, like,
Um,
or
I
no?
think some of her friends were potty trained that we would see
Okay.
regularly, and so maybe that sparked an interest.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started talking to her about it more, I think, at that point. But I wasn't really like, let's do this right now because I just had a baby. But yeah, I think the later you do it, it's easier because they won't like revert back to accidents as much.
Yeah.
So, but I think like 2.5 is like a normal time frame for like starting to potty train.
Yeah.
So we
I
kind
would
of like
say.
slowly integrated into it. It wasn't like we were home 3 days and then she was magically potty trained, like some people say. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it just depends on the kid, honestly. Like every kid
Yeah.
is so different when it
And their
comes to potty
willingness to
training.
want to do it, or like,
Yeah. Yeah.
just, how was it with like your marriage? Like, you and your husband, were you together like a while before you got married and had kids? And then what was
Yeah.
that transition for your marriage like? Like bringing Lucy, having Lucy, then having Hazel. Like, do you ever find time to, just be with each other?
Yeah. We were together. We've been together 10 or 11 years now. So we dated a few years before we got married. And so we'd been together a while. We started dating right after high school. So we've been together a while, known each other a while. And then I think just like going through hard times with like infertility with Lucy, and then just like with Hazel, it's harder week of she was born.
Mm-hmm.
I think it brought us closer together. But honestly, he's so helpful and with the baby, and he's not like he always said that he wasn't like a baby guy, like he's like more when they're toddlers. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, he's pretty much a baby guy. Like he loves them. So I feel like his relationship with Lucy, like they bonded more when she was able to talk and like walk more.
Yeah.
Like he enjoys that stage more, which I think is normal for guys too. Because as moms, I feel like we connect more with babies because we're like they need us more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like he's super helpful. Like in the nights, like he'll wake up and help with either girls, and so I feel like it for us it strengthened, I think, our marriage too. But it's still hard on our like having kids is it
Oh,
does
yeah.
it's harder on your marriage for anyone just because it's not just about you guys anymore. It's not about you. It's these they have to come first, and like their
Mm-hmm.
needs are bigger than ours. But so we do try to prioritize like date nights and you know, doing things that we need to do for our marriage and our relationship. And we put each other before our kids and having that mindset. But yeah,
That's a good mindset to have. I like that.
yeah, yeah,
Um, as far as like, you have this little tab and it says homeschool. Like, are you going to homeschool the girls?
yeah,
Is that
yeah.
like all these activities that you have? I'm like,
Yes,
where, like,
I think
follow
it's like,
Kimberly if you need all these activity ideas,
oh
because
my gosh.
I love it. Like, I'm like,
Oh yeah,
Sailor's not at that age yet, but I'm like,
yeah,
I'm going to your page and I'm just going to look at the activities that you
yes.
do.
I just like, I think it's the creative part of me. I just like love all those little like crafts and art and stuff. Like I do art, like I do like some commissions and like I'll do watercolor art and stuff like, so I still do that a little bit on the side. And so I've always had that artistic side of me. And so I think I've just brought that into like what I do with her.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you have to like entertain your kids all the time, because that's definitely, I don't think you do. They need to learn how to play independently. But for some like activities, I like to set up like little art crafts or like whatever for her. And I've just found with her personality, like she enjoys it. I think it's more common with girls to like that stuff because even though she's high, I feel like she's high energy, but she just likes to like she'll sit down and do them. So
Mm-hmm.
and she gets excited when I bring out like all the art stuff. So I started doing that because she's young, too young to like actually homeschool, but we plan to homeschool.
Okay.
Um I wasn't homeschooled or anything, but I have a lot of friends that were teachers before they became a mom. So they would always kind of give me like some ideas or like advice. Because I don't come from like homeschool family, so I was like, I don't know what we're gonna do, and we have to homeschool. So I think I just started researching on like wanted to prepare like my mindset before we homeschool, and so I just started kind of getting ideas from like Pinterest and seeing what she likes to do. So that's why then I just started sharing like just little things that we like do that are like age appropriate for her. So
Yeah. I love
yeah,
it. Like all the like
yeah, it's so fun.
matching or like putting the color or putting like the
Yeah,
shape.
yeah, because
It's
I
so
have some
cute.
old teacher friends, and they're like, well, like, because I put a lot of pressure, like, what does she need to like know at 3 years old or 4 years old? Like, what does she need to know before she like starts official school?
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember my friend saying, like, don't put a lot of pressure on it because like these years they go so fast, and like especially when they get to like that kindergarten age, like they pick up things way quicker than they would now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to start things, just focus on like letter recognition and color recognition and like matching. Like those are things that you can start doing. And she's pretty advanced for her age, like with communication. And so I was like, I want to like help her where she's at.
Yeah.
Um, so I started looking up all those things. But yeah, my friend just encouraged me. She's like, even when you're at the grocery store, you could be like doing school, I guess. Like, be like, okay, help me count the apples or putting it in the cart. Or like, what color is that fruit over there? Like, let's put it in. Like, things like that that you probably do with your kids
Yeah.
um,
I
is
love
like,
that.
it's good preparing them too.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
she seems
Yeah.
pretty advanced. I was gonna say, like,
Yeah.
just the things that I had seen you doing with her, I'm like, wow, like she knows what,
Yeah.
exactly what she needs to be doing with this. And that's why I was like,
Yeah.
I love that you do that because it could really
Yeah.
be, I mean, it could help her excel. I feel like
Yeah. Yeah. Because
it's
she's pretty
helping
smart.
her.
So I want to help her where like she's already at. Because one of my friends asked me what we did. I was like, we honestly didn't do anything to help her vocabulary. Like I think some kids just advance with their vocabulary and their communication earlier than others. Like, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
we did anything particular. We just read a lot of books to her when she was little. So always reading. So she loves books. So like, I feel like that helps. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
just talking to them a lot, I think that helps. Like, just explaining what you're doing, just really talking to your kids like a lot, I think sometimes makes a difference in like their vocabulary too. So
Yeah.
I
And I
also have to
feel
watch what I
like,
say because she repeats everything I say.
yeah. And I feel like talking to them like a normal, like you would talk, like
Person.
how we're
Hmm.
talking.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you talk to them like they're a baby and they understand more than we
Oh,
know.
they understand a lot. And I have like a lot of mom friends. And so like the kids are around her age. And so like also when you get kids together and like they're talking, and especially with older kids, if you have like a
Mm-hmm.
kid that's a few years older, they're talking more. And so they learn from their peers and stuff too. And well, I started a mom walk in my area when Lucy was 6 months old. And so I was always like at least once a week meeting with like moms and like kids and doing like a play date at least once a week.
That's
So I think that
nice.
also helped. She was just used to being around kids. So like even though we're gonna homeschool, we're still gonna be around
Oh, yeah.
socializing
Yeah,
and like being
socializing.
around. I think there's like a weird stigma with homeschooling, but yeah. I think
I,
it's more open nowadays. I feel like with social media, I think it's more
yeah.
talked about.
No, I agree. I mean, my husband and I'm like, I don't know, maybe we'll homeschool. Like,
Yeah.
depends where
Yeah.
we live, what we're doing, the lifestyle you want. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
has nothing to do with me socializing my daughter. Like, I want her to like be friends and meet
Yeah.
people. And she's such a social butterfly already. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Girls I feel like are like that.
yeah.
Chatty.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm experiencing. I don't have, I don't have
Yeah.
a boy yet. So do you still do your mom walks then, like weekly?
I stopped doing them once Hazel was born.
Okay.
I like right before I had her, I like passed off. I did it with the Mom Walk Collective. It's like a mom walk organization. So it just started when Lucy was like 6 months old, and it was in Orange County. And
Oh,
so
cool.
then people in certain cities were like, oh, I want to do this too. So like they made it like an organization. So that was like a branch that I did in my city because there wasn't anything like that in the area. So but that's why I met like some of my like mom friends. So it
Oh, I
was
love that.
a sweet season
So
of doing that.
the Mom Walk Collective,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Mom Walk Collective.
Yeah. It's on Instagram and everything.
I'm
So
gonna look that
I
up.
can send it to you. Yeah. But
Yeah.
if you don't have like mom friends, I feel like when you first become a mom, if you don't really know, if none of your friends are at that stage, it can be hard to like meet people.
Yep.
And luckily I had like a few friends, but I also wanted to get out of the house and like do certain things with her. And I feel like you're walking a lot when you have a newborn. And so yeah, so I started doing
And
that when she
I
was
just love
six
to walk
months.
too. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
you can just go on their
Yeah.
Instagram and like see
Yeah.
what cities they're in.
Yeah, they have like a
I
website and
love
everything
that.
now. Yeah, and there's so many other like mom communities I feel like nowadays like that are starting from that. But that was one that was like free because a lot of like mom community things you had to pay for, or there were like workout ones, like bring your baby to work out. And I was like, I don't want to work out. I just want to walk.
Yeah, I would take a walk over a workout any day. Like
Yeah,
for
like we
me,
were meeting
like
for coffee and walking like that is exactly what I want to do. I do
coffee
not
and
want to lift
walking.
my baby up and do a
Yeah.
squat. I just, especially postpartum, sometimes you're just like, I just want to chill.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now having the girls, do you feel like you're pretty settled into like just doing activities and like getting out of the house with both of them? You feel like really comfortable doing that?
Yeah, I feel like each month got easier. So once Lucy turned 2, so they're like after Hazel was born, like 2 months after, each month I noticed just got easier and like Lucy communicate better each month. Like once they hit 2, I just feel like they change so much. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're just not like a little baby anymore in my mind. Like so like she would play better independently. She could walk obviously, so she could like, get help me. She could hold things for me. She could help me. She was throwing away diapers for me.
Oh,
She was just more helpful in that stage. But yeah, getting out of the house, I feel like it was just a learning curve of like, okay, I have to just bring a lot more stuff than I did with just Lucy as a toddler. And so I just have to like pack my car ahead of time the night before to like the mornings to run smooth. So you just have to do more prep, I feel like, with 2, if you want to get out of the house or whatever it is that you're trying to do.
yeah.
But yeah, I feel like now we've like found a good groove and like a good rhythm, but definitely took a little bit. It's now easier that Hazel's like sitting up. She's
Mm-hmm.
not napping as much, which helps. And so, it's hard the first year of a baby's life because it's like their naps change so often,
Mm-hmm.
and like just seasons of their little life in that year, they change so much. So it's like first, then now she's crawling everywhere and about to walk,
Yeah.
holding up on stuff. So it's just, yeah, it just changes so much in that first like year of their
Yeah.
life.
I feel like it just starts, I don't know, not that it's not fun, but I feel like right now is my sweet spot. And I feel like it's only going to get better. Like 15
Yeah.
months, like, she's walking. I feel like we can ask
Hmm.
her, like, can you bring me your ball? And like, she knows
Yeah.
what we're
Hmm.
talking about. And like,
Yeah.
that's just so much easier than not knowing what they need.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I love
That's
it.
the hard part of like when they're still a baby. It's like, I don't know what you need right now. Like how, because they can't tell you what they need.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot easier.
So how many kids do you think you and your husband want?
We always said maybe 3 to 4.
Okay.
And so we'll see. Yeah, we'll definitely
Yeah.
see. I think it depends on how my next pregnancy goes.
Mm-hmm.
Because we haven't thought that much about it yet because or Hazel is almost 1, but I definitely want to research a little bit more about like preeclampsia and like what I can do to like hopefully prevent it and just help my body more. And obviously the NICU stay was not fun, so I'd love to avoid that again. But I think it was
Yeah.
just moving past that and just thinking about our life, and we're not sure if we want to move from where we are. And so I think we're kind of in the middle of like we probably need a little bit of bigger space before we add another baby. And so just kind of those factors. So we're not sure. And I might want a bigger age gap, like maybe
Yeah.
2.5 years. So we'll see
I feel
if I
like
could plan it because it's not up to me really, but
I know that's the thing. It's out of our control. But I always, it's
yeah.
funny. I tell my husband all the time, like, I feel like there's so much pressure, or just so many people have 2 under 2 that, after
Hmm.
your daughter or son turns a year, you're like, oh, we got to start trying. And I'm like, no way am I ready.
Hmm.
Like, I feel
Yeah.
like I would personally love to try when she's 2 years old. I'm
Yeah.
like, bringing, having her be like 2.5 to 3 years old when we have another baby to me is perfect.
I
But
have heard that's the easiest age gap or easier because it's
yeah,
every age gap has its like pros and cons, I would say.
definitely.
Um, but a lot of friends that I've talked to, they say that going from 1 to 2 is a lot easier, but they have a bigger age gap than I do.
Hmm.
And a lot of people that have like a 20-month age gap say it's harder, but they like it because it's like they're both in diapers. You're kind of just doing the same things a lot. Like they're just similar in age. So
Yeah.
it's like really, really, really hard in the beginning, but then it's like nice because they're really close in age for when they're older. So it kind of just depends on what hard you want to do.
No,
Do you want harder in the
definitely.
beginning or like, yeah,
I
but
know. I've thought about that. I'm like, well, if one's out of diapers and then you have one in diapers, like there's pros and cons to that. You're like,
yeah,
well, she's going potty by herself and I just have to take care of one. Like, yeah.
yeah, which I think is easier. So yeah,
In my mind it is, but you know, then I'm like, well,
some people I think would rather just like do the baby phase and then be
Yeah.
like done with babies and then like be like, okay, I'm raising kids now.
Yeah.
So it kind of just depends on what you want, how many kids you have, what you want to do there. But since we want more kids, my husband was like, well, why don't we just like have them all really close together? I'm like, well, I need my body to like, I kind of want my body back for
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
Because then I breastfeed for a year. And then
Yeah.
right after I stopped breastfeeding Lucy, I got pregnant 2 months later. So it's like my body was, it's like it's not your own, which it's a sacrifice. Being a mom is a sacrifice and having babies is,
1000%.
but yeah.
And I feel like after you breastfeed, I mean, and maybe are you going to go like as long as you can, or do you stop at a year typically?
I Lucy weaned herself after like
Okay.
13 months. After she started walking, she just was like over it. But I think she was more comforted by her passy than me. And then she liked food a lot. And I'm noticing that with Hazel. She really likes food. So I feel like I'll go however long they really Hazel needs, but
Yeah.
I think she won't nurse for very long. I have a feeling it'll be the same thing because she just loves food. And I think she's getting more full from the food because I think after a year, it's for more for comfort, I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure, than like actually calories. So, hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I feel like your body needs, like, even when you're done breastfeeding, like, I noticed a change again in my body and like in my hormones. And I'm not
Yeah.
certain, but I definitely feel like your body, like I would say I stopped breastfeeding at 9 months. And then, like,
Mm-hmm. That's still a long time to breastfeed,
yeah, it
though.
was
Like, that's
I was
significant.
really proud of myself. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm proud of myself that I did that. On top of,
Yeah.
I mean, having the preeclampsia, our bodies also need to heal from that. It doesn't just,
Yeah.
go away. I mean,
Yeah.
it does a little something to us.
Yeah. I honestly haven't researched preeclampsia a lot. So I definitely want to do that, but I don't think there's a lot of research I've heard.
No,
Um,
there's really
there's one thing
not.
I read that there's one thing I read though that it could be the men's fault. It could be your spouse's fault. And I was
I've
like,
read
okay,
that
let's
too.
dive into this. It's
I
something about
have read
their
that.
health. Yeah, I want to dive deeper into that, but I don't think there's a lot of research on it.
One thing to check, I know you had mentioned you went to like a naturopath,
Hmm.
your thyroid. I don't know if you've ever had your
My
thyroid
thyroid was
checked.
fine when I went to her before Lucy, but it
Okay.
could have changed within like 2 years, so or like a year and a
Yeah.
half.
Because there is like, I don't know if it's antigens or antibodies with like your thyroid
Mm-hmm.
that can contribute to preeclampsia happening during
Hmm.
pregnancy. So just something to
Okay.
look into. And then, I mean, you just got to pray about it.
Yeah.
And the good
Yeah.
thing is, when I saw my doctor, he's like, there's always a chance that you can get this again, but you
Hmm.
had it late term. He's like, so like with you
True.
getting it at 37 weeks, that's much better than you getting it at like 20 weeks or 24 weeks.
True. Yeah, because I think if you get it
So,
early, you have to go on bed rest, or they have to like monitor you like significantly.
yeah, or take the baby,
Yeah.
which obviously like don't want to happen. But the good thing is
Right.
like with you having it late term, from what my doctor has expressed to me, and I got it the same time you did, it's that we would most likely get it late term again. But he's like,
Okay.
it's like a 10% chance. He's like, there's
Hmm.
no guarantee. But
Yeah. Were
I
you
feel
high
like
risk though? You mentioned that.
I was high risk. So I was seeing a high risk doctor. And the reason why my OB/GYN sent me to a high risk is because he noticed the mildly high blood pressure,
Got it.
but
Okay.
also my thyroid. So when he did test my thyroid, because they run the thyroid, the T4
Hmm.
and T3,
Yeah.
it was higher than where they would have liked it. And with
Oh, that makes
pregnancy,
sense.
your levels need to be in a certain, like, it actually needs
Range.
to be lower. Yeah, you want it
Oh,
lower than
okay.
like,
Because pregnancy does just like I feel like spike whatever you have.
yeah, and it doesn't always do like affect your thyroid, but for me it
Hmm.
did. And so I was on thyroid medicine, and so and then it brought it down right away, which was great. And he's like, as soon as you're done being pregnant, you can get off of this. So now I am off of it.
Okay.
But because of those two things, he's like, I do want you to see a high risk doctor. And shame on
Okay.
me. I went to the high risk doctor and he was like, hey, I want you to start taking baby aspirin. Well, I was scared to
Hmm.
take baby aspirin every day, and I didn't do that.
Yeah.
So, could I have avoided what happened? Potentially.
Mhm.
I
Maybe. We'll never know. Yeah.
we'll never know. Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all that matters is that I'm healthy. My daughter is beautiful and healthy. That's all that matters.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
baby aspirin seems to be like the key to like what you
Mhm.
can do. But like you said, there's other changing what you're eating, and just checking just certain levels, like I said, with your
Yeah.
thyroid and other vitamins and stuff like that can help.
Yeah. I think I will do like a full hormonal blood panel with that naturopath now because my friend actually is doing that just to like get postpartum, like not body back, but her just levels like fixed and
Yeah.
like what she needs to do, like feel whole again as after like postpartum. And she wants more kids, but she's like, I just want to be like the healthiest version of myself, not to like lose weight necessarily and to like be super fit, but just like for your hormones to like kind of help level out. 'Cause sometimes you need some help and it's not talked about a lot.
No, I would agree. It's really not. And it's so important because, yeah, I mean, pregnancy, it does a lot of different stuff to our bodies. And then,
Yeah.
you take in the breastfeeding, and
It just depletes you. I think it just takes everything from you.
I would agree. I would agree with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love it. And I want to be
Yeah.
I want to have more babies. And I say the same thing. Like, it just is depending on how my next pregnancy goes. Like,
Yeah.
my goal at this point is just to give my daughter a sibling. I'm like, hey, if I can
Yeah.
have two, that's like
Great.
one's a
Yeah.
blessing, but if I can have
Yeah.
two, that would make me feel really whole.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I am seeing a functional medicine doctor, and I told my OBGYN, I'm like, and I know him
Mm-hmm.
personally, my doctor. I'm like, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, is no disrespect to you.
Yeah.
I you walked me through my pregnancy. You thought I was going to get preeclampsia. I did. Like, you were right all along, and you got me
Mm-hmm.
safe into the finish line. I'm like, but I do just want to see, like, is there anything I can do
Yeah. I think
besides
that's
just getting on a
great too.
medication? Um,
Yeah.
and ultimately, like, if I get pregnant and he wants me to go on thyroid medicine again, I might have to. Like, I'm gonna do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree with your friend. I'm like, I just want to make sure that I am in my best shape internally to be
Yeah.
carrying another child
Yeah. Because
when
it
that
is a lot on
happens.
your body. Yeah. It's a lot on your body, especially if you go back to back. It can be just a lot. Like you don't give your body a break and just to enjoy like your life out postpartum, and just to be fully full for your kids.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So as far as like moving, do you think, like, did you grow up in California?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, and same
Yes,
with
I
your
grew up here.
husband.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually grew up like 5 minutes from each other
Oh
and we
wow.
met in high school or met like at the end of high school. But yeah. So
So you'll stay
yeah,
in
we don't know.
California then. It's just moving
We're
to
not
like a
sure. We're
different.
just
Oh,
leaving
really?
it. We're just leaving it open. Yeah. So we're not sure. But yeah, leaving it open to see what.
Is there any like
Yeah.
state that if you guys were to leave California, you like it?
Yes, we would love to go to Tennessee. So
Okay.
yes, so we're born and raised in California, but yeah, we both would love to go to Tennessee.
I
So
can
we'll
see
we'll
that.
see.
Like,
Yeah.
based on like, I don't know, just like your style, like
Yeah. Yeah,
your
we'd love to have
like,
like an acre of land,
yes,
have
I
probably
can
not full
see
on
that.
homestead or anything, but like have some chickens, live
Yeah.
near some horses, not have horses, but like maybe if my neighbor did, that would be cool.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
No, I can definitely, I mean, Tennessee is such a beautiful place.
Yeah, we'd love to just like have more space and like let our kids just like roam and just like have a slower living like life. Not that you can't have that here, but it can be a little harder. And
Yeah.
we would love a backyard, and so a lot of things to think about because our family's here. But it would be a fun adventure. So we'll see.
Definitely. And I
We will
always say,
see.
like,
Yeah.
it's an adventure that if it doesn't work out, you can
Yeah.
always go back. And like,
Yeah.
I should be giving myself advice because,
Yeah.
sometimes we get so like comfortable in our day to day that we're like, how
Yeah.
do we branch out or try do something different? But it's like, well, if you don't like it,
Right.
then you just change it again. And
Yeah.
and when your kids
Exactly.
are young is like the best time to do it, I feel.
Yeah. I've learned to not hold on to things super tightly because plans can change, and so yeah, we're just open minded to it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess, is there, like, for the moms listening,
Mhm.
is there any like piece of advice or just pieces of advice becoming a mom of like, you know, going from one to two that you could give to them? Like, that you would love to have had for yourself?
I'm trying to think. 1 to 2. I think just to give yourself a lot of grace because I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as moms to like when we're doing it all. And I think it's okay to like ask for help, which is really hard for me. And I didn't do that as much, and just ask for help if you need it, either like from family or friends, but just to give yourself a lot of grace if you are not feeling like you're able to do it all as a mom of two, especially with adding two, it can just, it's harder. It's adding another person you have to take care of. And so, yeah, definitely giving yourself some grace.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. And I feel like any mom can use that advice. Like, give
Yeah.
yourself grace through the times of, motherhood.
Yeah. Because if you think you're not sleeping as well as you normally do, like sometimes, like for me, I struggled with having more patience, especially when adding on two, because I was way more overstimulated with having two kids and just like having a toddler and also baby crying at the same time. And so I think sometimes mentally it can be just more challenging. And so I definitely have to give myself that advice when it's just harder. So, but also each season, it's just a season. I think I have to remind myself, like, it won't always be this hard. Like with Lucy, she wasn't sleeping the night, and then it got way easier when she was mentally or whatever it was. So just remembering also it's just a season, and like it will pass, and you will sleep through the night one day. Um, and your kids will get so much easier, and it'll be more fun, and just like to find those moments of fun even in the hard. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
everything that you've shared.
Yes, thanks for
I've
having me. We just
loved
yapped.
having
I
you
love my
on. Yeah, I've loved having you on and getting to know you more. And like I said in the beginning when we first jumped on the call, I'm like, if we lived in the same state, we would be going on some walks together and drinking our
yes, we'll be
coffee.
friends.
Yeah.
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah, we can just be
Yeah,
friends
thank
from
you
a
so
distance
much.
for now.
Yes, I love that with social media. It's like you can like meet so many different people and become like little friends and meet up if you live close, and
I
just more
know.
connection, which is so sweet.
Well, Tennessee's
Yeah.
closer. So if you
Yeah,
move to
so maybe one
Tennessee,
day. Maybe one
you
day.
never know.
Yeah, it could
Oh,
happen.
well, it was
Well,
so
thank you so
nice.
much.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm so excited to share your journey and what you've shared with everyone.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah,
Bye, guys.
bye.